Okay, we have an extra special VIP guest at the base retreat today. Her name is Scarlett. She is a beagle, and she is here with her mum and dad, Janie and Phil. Tell us about the first 2 years of her life.
Well, Scarlett is a survivor of the animal testing industry. She spent the first 2 years of her life in a toxicology lab in Hungary. There, she would have been restrained, had a tube forced down her throat, and had something toxic administered through the tube. She would have then been put back into her a cold metabolic cage. No pain relief, no anaesthetic, no palliative care, and that would have happened every day for 90 days at a time. The suffering the beagles go through in that situation is horrific. And then she would have been recycled for another experiment later. In some cases, they put the dogs down and dissect them. It depends what specifically they're testing, because it could be pharmaceutical products, it could be household cleaning products. You don't know. Beagles are, pretty much the animal of choice for toxicology testing. But her first 2 years of her life would have been hell. But thankfully, she survived it and she was rescued.
Mm. She, would you have would you have spent all day in that cage? Did they get any time out in these
No,
labs or anything?
there's no. They get no social interaction. They get no enrichment. They get no love. They get no care. They're just alone, without any interaction with humans or animals. They're fed the cheapest of dried food. These companies are specialised in producing the cheapest dried food. There's barely enough to keep them alive. When she got her freedom at about the age of 2, if you look at pictures of her on her website and her social media, you'll see she's very, very small and skinny, almost no muscle mass at all.
Mm.
She was like, you know, tiny and thin, painfully thin when we got her.
Wow. Yeah, that's horrific. How was she rescued?
Okay, well, luckily, Beagle Freedom rescued her. They are a charity based in Hollywood. They actually rescue beagles all around the world in laboratories all around the world. Um, they're headed by the amazing Shannon Keith, who is actually a lawyer as well as an animal rights activist. Um, what she does is she negotiates with certain laboratories. Doesn't always work. Some laboratories are very, very closed. They won't talk to anyone. They won't, and they're very, very, very secretive. Um, the UK is one of the worst countries for being secretive about what goes on in laboratories. That's why in this country, the way people get to know what's going on in labs is undercover footage. So people will pretend to will take a job as a laboratory worker and film the abuse and the horrendous treatment that these animals get, all behind closed doors. They can get away with ragging them, screaming at them, abusing them, as well as the actual experiments, because they're in an environment which is a law unto itself. However, in different countries, and especially in America, you can get information on what is going on inside the lab. It's within your rights to know what experiments are being done. So Hungary, obviously, this particular toxicology lab in Hungary would have been open to Shannon saying, why are you doing this test? Why are you repeating this test? What are you going to do with these beagles when you're finished with them? And managed to get the release of Scarlett and 6 other beagles.
That's amazing. So that's just through negotiation
Yes.
and by pulling them up. And
Well, it took the best part of a year.
Yeah.
So we don't know exactly what was said, but Shannon must have had a good grip on the fact that that they were doing something that they probably repeated, they'd done it before, it was maybe obsolete, and she could actually negotiate their release. And it was amazing when they came out. They were called the Bond Beagles.
Right.
Because
they all came to the UK.
They all,
James Bond.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, even though they were called the Bond Beagles, they all had royalty names. Scarlett's original name was Catherine, after Kate Middleton.
Well, they called them after the royal family to start with. Then they called them the Bond Beagles. That's just an American thing they did. So they knew they were coming to us.
Oh, I see.
UK.
Right. Yeah.
So little Scarlett, part of the rescue would have been a plane journey.
Okay.
You know, a passport, a pretty spectacular rescue. And, you know, if you go on the Beagle Freedom Project's Facebook or their website, there's all these wonderful release stories of beagles in China, you know, rabbits, other laboratory animals. They are incredible.
That's really encouraging, because I don't think you just don't hear enough of that.
No,
and not in this country, because the whole of vivisection in this country is shrouded in secrecy. You know, clause 24 of the Animals in Scientific Procedures Act is a whole secrecy clause that shrouds vivisection in this veil you can't challenge. It is actually illegal for vivisection outfits to even talk about what they're doing. All they do is that they submit their whatever it is reports to the Home Office once a year, and the figures never really add up when you look at the figures published by the Home Office. You can't challenge these labs. It's all secretive. But in other countries, like America, in places in Europe, across the world, they don't have this secrecy, because it's public money that's funding vivisection. Public bodies and the public has a right to know and to challenge, to get information as to what they're spending public money on.
That's in other countries.
In other countries, but like I say, can't do it in this country because of the British law.
Our taxpayers' money is going into these abhorrent tests, and the abuse is rife. You know, we're always. I mean, there was an undercover video. It's a Dog's Life. Do you remember that one? It's a Dog's Life. There are many more. The sort of people that work in these places are extremely hardened and psychopathic. But yeah, she's with us, and her brothers and sisters, as far as we know are okay. They've all gone to different homes. The only one we keep in contact with is Harry.
Okay.
So you might at some point meet Harry Bond, which is Scarlett's brother.
Yeah.
And he's been to Camp Beagle about 3 times. So watch this space, and you know, Scarlett and Harry sometimes do things together. So yeah.
They're like two peas in a pod. They look very, very much alike.
They are.
They walk alike. Their behaviours are very similar.
Right.
Yeah.
What about what can you say about her behaviour then, from considering where she's come from?
Oh gosh, yes. Well, Scarlett is she's okay. To start with, she had to learn how to drink from a water bowl, have a lead on and a harness.
She hadn't drunk from a bowl before?
No, because in the little cages that they're just the metabolic cages that they live in, they live a bit like the worst scenario for rabbits. They've got like that bottle dripper, the water dripper thing, and they're just in a cage. You know, like unfortunately a lot of rabbits.
Hours and hours a day, just alone.
So she, you know, water bowls and grass and going for a walk was, you know, she had to learn all that. And she was timid, but I would say that her behaviour with us is she's still very compliant. So she's lost the timidness, thank God, over the years, but she's incredibly sort of polite and compliant. She doesn't do anything naughty. You know, like some dogs, you know, will jump up where they're not supposed to be, or
Raid the trash can.
or grab something they're not supposed to have, or you know, that's normal dog behaviour. But Scarlett's very polite, and she asks to be let up onto the bed or the sofa. She lays flat on the floor when you put her harness on, because her training was all about staying still. It's absolutely horrific, actually, because the compliance training.
I hadn't heard that before in this context, and so
it's compliance training is pretty brutal, similar to when they break elephants for riding. They break the spirit. Compliance training is you will do as you're told, or else you're going to hurt.
Right.
They rag them like that if they cry or squeal, or you know, they know what's going to happen. The puppies, you know, you're going to hurt me. You're going to put something down my throat. You're going to inject me, and they rag them, and they scream at them, and they punch them.
You see this on undercover footage.
So Scarlett has still, it breaks my heart, she has still got that, am I allowed? And she's flat on the floor, and we have to pick her up and say, we're going walkies. She breaks through it sometimes, but any situation that she's not used to, she's incredibly polite, and she kind of looks to us to know what to do. It's almost like, because the socialisation period of her puppyhood was taken over by being a laboratory tool instead of being a dog.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's why she is so polite and compliant now, still.
When you get a beagle, if you're lucky enough to get a beagle from a laboratory, they don't know how to be a dog. They don't know how to behave. They've not, as Jane said, they've not socialised with other animals at any time. They've not had the nurturing from the mother to raise them properly. They've never walked on grass before. They've never drunk from a water bowl before. It's all new and quite scary to them. But you know, it's time, love, patience with any rescue animal, and they can get over it. And Scarlett lives a very, very happy life, and now it's a case of she does things because that's what her training has taught her, not because she feels
unhappy,
not because she's unhappy, not because she's afraid, frightened, she thinks you're going to hurt her. It's just that her training has taught her certain behaviours.
That's her nature.
That's her nature now. She just does what she was trained to do.
Yeah.
But she knows she's not going to get hurt. She knows that we protect her.
I mean, the love she shows.
Yeah.
I mean, Theo's, you've seen her kissing us.
Yeah.
She just gives so much love. She is, you know, she gives so many kisses, so much love.
She does, yeah.
It's
she looks after
incredible,
us.
isn't it?
She's very protective of us. You know, when a chicken was, in her view, coming a bit too close to Mummy yesterday, she was like, "Whoa!"
Up at the window,
barking at the kitchen at the chicken. Go away! You know, this is my mummy. You're not going near my mummy.
Wow.
You wouldn't think that of a beagle as a garden breed, but heck, she will guard mummy.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I don't.
Well, their dogs are so loyal, aren't they, doggies?
They are. Yeah. So how long has she been with you now?
Right. So we've had her 5 years. So according to her passport, she was 2 when she came out of the lab. So a Hungarian rescue charity would have dealt with the beagles when they came out the lab, and then arranged the passports and everything for them to be shipped, you see, with Beagle Freedom Project. So we've had her 5 years now, and she's so special. Everybody loves Scarlett. She's got a strong personality. She's one of those souls that you know has lived before. She's an old soul. She's a special soul. She understands people. She knows who's good. She knows who's not to be approached. She's just amazing.
She's quite often called an ambassador, and I can see that she is an ambassador for all the dogs who are where she used to be. And so, would you say Scarlett is an animal rights activist?
Oh, most definitely. most definitely. She is an ambassador for the For Life on Earth campaign, and that's how we will end vivisection, is through the science. But Scarlett spends a lot of her time with us. Look, on animal rights type stuff. We've been to Camp Beagle a number of times.
Yep.
With her to show support, and people love Scarlett. I think because Scarlett represents what we're fighting for. Scarlett is a physical reminder. This is somebody that was born in a place like MBR Acres, went through that horrible experience, went on to being shipped to a vivisection lab. Scarlett has lived that terrible, terrible life and survived it. So people love Scarlett because she is the physical embodiment of everything we're fighting for.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we've been involved in the campaign, but to actually meet Scarlett, I mean, she's the first laboratory dog I've met, and actually seeing her in person is quite a poignant moment, really. Especially yesterday, I saw the tattoos on her ear, her numbers from the labs. Really brings it home. But so at the same time, it's really nice to see her so happy and peaceful, at peace. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she wants to close down MBR Acres, and we will close down MBR Acres. It's an incredible campaign, a strong campaign. We will end vivisection on the science because of the failure rate of animal testing. People, once the cat is out the bag, which it already is that 96% of animal tests go on to fail in the human trials. So all these billions and billions are being ploughed into this new drug, this new alternative or slight adjustment to a drug. They're going through all these animal tests, the rodents and a non-rodent, because every test has to be rodent and then usually a beagle or another animal, usually a beagle if it's toxicity testing, and people will get angry because our taxpayers' money is going into this industry that we're not allowed to know anything about, and yet we're ploughing money into it. Big pharmaceuticals controlling our planet, controlling everything. Once the world wakes up and we realise that it's a fraud, it's a scientific fraud, and that we have to go into the new modern methods.
It's never been proven. That's the bizarre thing. It was never proven that animal tests are predictive of what happens in humans. So when I say predictive, if you test something on an animal, it works, it doesn't work, that can't predict what will happen if you do the same test on a human. So drugs that can work successfully in an animal, over 90% of them go on to fail in humans.
Yeah.
But what about the other way around? What about drugs that fail in an animal? You don't know, they may work in a human. But you don't know.
Or they get withdrawn at a later date because people have heart attacks and die from the drug.
So this is the thing. We're not only wasting vast amounts of money on developing stuff that goes on to fail in humans, but what about the treatments that we've missed, discarded because it fails an animal test and it could have worked in a human? And there's been some good examples of that, like even going back as far as penicillin. When Fleming developed penicillin, he tested it on rabbits. The rabbits assimilated too fast for it to have any effect. So he assumed it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it was shelved for over a decade, I think. And then
Wow.
some other scientists came along and thought, wait a minute, maybe if we try some other means of testing, and they did that and found that actually penicillin will work in humans. And other things, there's been other vaccines that have been, like the polio vaccine, I think was delayed by decades, up to 40 years, I think, because
Wow.
they couldn't get it to work properly.
Yeah.
They were using animal models, assuming that they were correct, and it turns out they're not. And science is littered with all of these failures. Diabetes was assumed to be a disease of the liver based on what animal tests were given, but no, scientists were misled. It's actually a disease of the pancreas, and we've cured cancer in mice thousands of times.
Yeah.
Well, when are we going to start curing cancer in humans?
Yeah.
We've had well over 1,000 successful treatments developed for stroke victims. Neuroprotective drugs. Well over 1,000 treatments have worked successfully in non-human primates.
Yeah.
Not even just beagles, non-human primates that are even closer genetically to us. All failed in humans.
Wow. Yeah.
HIV, AIDS treatments working in non-human primates, failing in humans. The animal models do not work. Then the scientific data shows that they not only don't work, but are actually counterproductive. So
but there are new methods.
That's
now.
the thing. There's much more. We've got technology at our disposal. We can process vast amounts of data very quickly. Proper scientific data. We've got concepts like human organ on a chip, where it's possible to grow part of a human organ in a lab and link it up electronically. And those sort of scientific methods. There are some enlightened companies that are investing in it. Those sort of methods, instead of getting a 90% failure rate, they're getting the exact opposite, tremendous success rates. And that's where all the money needs to go. Don't keep ploughing money into something that doesn't work. It's time that we started, going with the technology, with the science.
But we know that the vivisection industry is very lucrative. There's a lot of people that make a lot of money out of vivisection as a whole. You've got, everything, the breeders, the equipment, the people that work in the laboratories. They don't want to be questioned. They don't want people to know about this absolutely sort of horrendous failure rate. They don't want to change.
Yeah, they have careers invested in it.
Careers, money. It's about money and
Marshall Bioresources, own NBR
acres.
The last time I looked, I think I read that they were a $15 billion company.
Wow.
That's just one company. That's just one of many thousands of companies, and they supply primarily animals for laboratories. Think of all the other companies involved, the companies that supply the equipment, companies that even produce the cheapest of food to feed the animals. You've got this huge multinational global, set of companies making vast amounts of money from fraudulent science that's not working, that's failing this.
Yeah.
And we're losing cures because of this outdated model, and it's got to stop. It's the law. The laws around the world have got to be changed to allow, animal tests. If the animal test doesn't work, it shouldn't even be the last resort. But the law as written in many countries makes it the first resort.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got to overcome. So even if you develop something that will work in a human through a non-animal method, you've actually got to prove that it's better than the animal test. Well, the animal test doesn't work anyway. It's not predictive. The burden of proof is in the wrong place.
Yeah.
It's like Dr. Ray Greek, his analogy is the vivisection industry is like they're selling you a bicycle to go to the moon. That bicycle is not going to get you to the moon. But that's what they're almost trying to.
One day we'll cure cancer. We just need more money.
Yeah. It's always one day. It's always jam tomorrow. And huge amounts of money to make the smallest advancement in knowledge, but still never enough to actually genuinely produce cures.
Yeah, when you look at both sides, like you've just talked about there, it's very clear that it's a sham and it's just for the money, and it's also very clear where the future lies. So I hope it looks like that's the only thing that's required here is just exposure, just for people to see both sides that you just talked about.
And what we are calling for, because Scarlett's a Beagle ambassador for a science-based campaign.
Yeah.
What we are asking for is a formal science debate on this matter. The vivisection community doesn't want to engage because they know that they will go against them.
Yeah.
The only way we will get them to the table to debate this is
science hearing.
Is through a formal science hearing.
Which
we're trying to get.
Which will be looking at the whole thing again from the top. Let's starting afresh.
Yes. Let's look at the evidence.
Yeah.
It'll be scientists, but from all different relevant fields. So there'll be the people that are invested in using animals, but there'll also be mathematicians, other science experts, people that can work out, the statistics of animal testing. And we firmly believe that if we can get this science hearing, we will win. And we also know that people like Colin Blakemore, who have done he's part of the Huntington Life Sciences, the director there, he is scared to come to the table, come to the science hearing. He has been asked, you can come, you can have your say, and there's some reason why he doesn't want to be there. Why? Yeah. If he's so right, and if it all works and it's all so valid, why doesn't he want to be at the table?
That's a positive indicator, I think, for the movement, and that speaks volumes.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah. And we've got, Flo has got, you'll see there's various footage of vivisectors, what they say in public versus what they say in private.
Ah, yes.
Right.
And what they say in private is very, very different.
When they're teaching their students, they will admit the failure rates.
Wow.
Yeah. And we've actually got footage of them, on the one hand, on BBC News saying, oh yes, we're doing so well and it's all very positive and we need to use animals, and then talking to the students saying, well, unfortunately this has got a 95 or 96% failure rate when we're not getting there yet.
Yeah.
And it's like really crazy because it's like a zip thing, isn't it? It's like, said that day and said that the next day. It's like, they lie. They lie.
Yeah. And it's
terrible.
This is the thing, and then you've got understanding animal research that tries to put a nice gloss on vivisection and talk about how necessary it is. Who are they funded by? They're funded entirely by the vivisection industry. One of their paymasters is Marshall Bioresources. Hello. They've got pharmaceutical companies. They've got a number of British universities funding them. And if you look at the number of animals that British universities alone get through, Oxford University is well in excess of 200,000 animals a year. Wow. They get through. It is absolutely horrific. And for what? I think if you was to put a formal scientific challenge, say, right, demonstrate the real benefit, the advancement of real science, the finding of cures for what you're doing, it's not there. It's not there. And there's this construct in law written into the Animal and Scientific Procedures Act called the 3 R's, which, 3 words beginning with the letter R: reduce, refine, replace, which is the way the system sees animal testing as going. And on the face of it, it looks like, it looks like a decent framework that might end animal testing, but it won't. It's actually prolonging it because, for example, if you think about it, the 3 R's, reduce. Well, where's the reduction? If you look at the number of animals used in animal testing, the numbers are going up and up and up and up. You're not seeing any reduction at all.
Yeah.
And then you've got the second R, which is refine. Well, we want to refine the experiment so the animals suffer less. Well, if you take the example of Scarlett and a toxicology test, you feed them.
How do you refine
Yeah.
a toxicology
Yeah, because
test?
how do you make the suffering less? Well, you could anaesthetize the animal. Well, no, we can't do that because that'll interfere with the experiment. So there's almost no real refinement, and then the last one, the replace, is the worst of the lot, because what replace is saying is, let's replace the animal test with a non-animal test. The problem is the law assumes that the animal test is working, so you've got to find something better or an alternative to the animal test. So the burden of proof is in the wrong place, and it can take you up to 7 years to get approval for a non-animal method. And even then, when there's a non-animal method available, we're finding examples of companies that are ignoring that and doing the animal test anyway. Why isn't the Home Office prosecuting them? Why isn't this is the
Vested
thing?
interest.
Yeah.
So I think if we were to try and challenge, and I don't know even if you can challenge because of the secrecy of vivisection, if you were to try and challenge, even on the 3 hours alone, you'd find that it's just a complete and utter failure. It needs struck off, but we need the science herein so that we can formally and scientifically acknowledge that animal models do not and cannot work, and we've got to invest in something better now.
We need to uncover that and stop this perpetuation of the industry basically giving the government backhanders, the government doing nothing, the secrecy, that we're not allowed to know what's going on. We need the truth to come out.
I'm positive, because the way out is insight, and this is a case of logic will prevail
Yeah.
in the end.
Yeah.
So
and I mean, as soon as we get that first cure, it might be cancer, it might be something else, and we've got this cure. I can see it coming, and we did it by growing a human organ or human tissue and testing chemicals and drugs directly into that human tissue, and
they are working.
that will be how we cure it. Not rats, not rabbits, not dogs.
All of these new methods, or human organ on a chip, they're working. They're actually, producing results, genuine treatments, and there's some fantastic
We're not
examples.
hearing about
But
much of it, are we?
this is the thing. Everyone's focused. The entire industry is focused on vivisection, which is centuries out of date now.
Yeah.
It really is time for us to move forward.
For every experiment that somebody dreams up, whether it's sewing kittens' eyes together to see what they do psychologically, whatever disgusting dream experiment is dreamt up, they will get funding for that. It's a money spinner.
Yeah.
This is the frightening thing.
Yeah.
Well, we'll continue exposing it until it's over.
Until it's ended, we will carry on.
That's great.
Yes.
It's been lovely having you here. Really special
pleasure.
to you.
Anytime.
Thank you very much for your interview. Cheers.
Thank you.